Hey everyone, this is Litton. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. In this time of self-isolation and working from home, did your internet service provider come to you and offer you a great deal if you switch to their all-in-one solution? Did you already have an existing mesh network or wireless network, such as a Google Wi-Fi or Netgear Orbi? Were you frustrated to find out that by switching to this all-in-one solution, that your existing Wi-Fi network no longer worked? Have you spent hours and hours on hold or with tech support of your ISP only to come away more frustrated and with fewer answers than when you started? Would you like to know how to bypass the internal Wi-Fi and use your own wireless network again? Would you also like to know how to set up a robust open source firewall to give you some additional control over your network and give you some additional peace of mind? If so, stick with me after the break, and I'll go through what I've done in order to gain some control over my home network once again. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take my Altice One box and we're going to bypass the internal Wi-Fi that it comes with. And that kind of defeats the purpose of having an Altice One, I understand. But for me, having an Altice One isn't so bad. In fact, the deal that I got for my ISP, Altice USA or Optimum, was so much better than when I was a cord cutter and I had just internet from Optimum and I used an external TV provider or had Netflix and everything else. This actually saves me around $50 a month. However, I have made a significant investment in my internal network and wireless network. And it was very frustrating for me when I got everything set up only to find out that I couldn't use my existing wireless network. And the solution that I've put together is okay. I mean, it works really well. However, there are still some very frustrating things that I can't get past with the Altice One. Like, for example, I can't turn off the Altice One Wi-Fi or put it into bridge mode. I still have to allow that to broadcast. Also, because I can't put the Altice One into a bridge mode, I'm actually going to be double natting inside my internal network. Now, for most instances, this isn't going to be a problem. The situation that I've seen where this actually does become a problem is if you're doing a lot of gaming, but we've used our Xbox One and Xbox Live and had no problems with it. So there are some caveats to it, but in essence, what I've done now is I've taken the Altice One, I've bypassed it, I've put in a software, or actually a hardware firewall using Pfsense, which is an open source firewall product, which is wonderful. It's actually really robust and has constant development inside the community. And I've used that as my firewall to allow me to be able to use my existing wireless network. In my case, I've got an Aruba controller and wireless environment. But if you have a Google Wi-Fi or something else, this actually will work really well for you too. So what we're going to do is we're going to go piece by piece, identifying the different aspects of the solution, and then we're going to show how everything connects together. And then I'm going to show how to set up the Pfsense firewall, and then also finally show you how everything connects together and I'm able to use my old SSID and allow all of my components to be able to connect. So stick with us, and I hope that this is enjoyable and informative for you. So here it is. This is the Altice One. This is the latest offering from Optimum/Altice. It looks like every cable box ever until you turn it around. And here you see why it really is an all-in-one device. It's got its RG6 cable input, HDMI out for TV. It's got audio out if you want to hook it up to an external sound source like a sound bar or a home theater receiver. It's got different USB ports that you can connect to the devices to. It's got printer port USB connection, your voice over IP if you want to use their phone service. And then finally, it's got a 4-port gigabit switch. Now, for most people, or maybe not most people, but for a good amount of the population, this device really is all you need. If you have an apartment, or if you have a house that can be serviced by this all-in-one Wi-Fi or wireless device, it really does fit the bill. But like I had said, a lot of people have made the investment of buying their own separate wireless or Wi-Fi environments, routers, and things like that, and they still want to use it. Like I said, some of these devices are not cheap, and it's very frustrating when you're being told that you can't use it anymore. Calling Cablevision or Optimum's tech support is sometimes exercise in futility, because you can wait 25, 30, 40 minutes on hold, and when you finally do get to someone, either they're misinformed or they're just outright lying. Finally, I did figure out how to do it. It starts actually with connecting your Ethernet cable that will connect either to your switch or to your Wi-Fi equipment to port 4. This is the, I don't want to say it's a DMZ port because it's not, but this is the port that allows you to be able to connect your equipment and start using it alongside the Altice One. So what you would do is you would connect this to, say, a wireless router or something else that you have, and you can start using your own equipment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook everything back up. Right now my house is completely out of internet and TV, and I'm sure people will start voicing their frustration soon enough. So I'm going to hook this back up. I'm going to log into the Altice One router configuration page, and I'll show you how to restrict the built-in router and then use your own router in order to be able to give your house the internet and the Wi-Fi connection that you have been using all this time. So this is a server rack that I put together that houses everything that we're going to be working with today. On the lower shelf, we have the Altice One box. Above it, we have a Dell PowerEdge 2950. Yeah, this is a very old machine. It's almost 10 years old at this point. But for what we're trying to do, which is just use it as a Pfsense firewall router, it's more than adequate. And above it is a Aruba 7010 controller that's serving 2 access points at different locations in my house. And this is really all you need from a components perspective. You don't have to have, say, an Aruba controller, nor do you have to have an Intel Xeon processor server. You can use an older computer that you have laying around. That's the real power that Pfsense provides you, and it will work just as well. In my case, I just happen to have this server laying around from a few years ago, so I thought, why not repurpose it and use it for what we're going to be doing. I'm going to show you the back to show you all the connections that are needed. As you'll see, it's not really that complicated. You just need to have a couple of connections, and then we can go into the setup. So as we showed before, this is the Altice One box, the rear of the box, and now we have the cable line that's in. This HDMI cable goes to my home theater receiver in my other rack, and this is the Ethernet cable in port 4 that goes to the back of my Pfsense router firewall. And in this case, I just put it into one of the onboard gigabit ports that came with the server, and then I actually had a spare server NIC card that I threw in. That this wire is connected to my switch in my other server rack that feeds and serves the rest of the home network, including the Aruba controller. A very simple setup. Again, you don't need to have a full robust server environment. A regular older desktop computer, as long as it has an Ethernet port to take in the connection from the Altice One box and send a connection out to the rest of the home network, that's really all you need. So this is the router or gateway dashboard for the Altice One box. And as I had said before, if you are a normal user and you are going to be okay using a single box for your Wi-Fi or wireless connectivity, the Altice One is actually a really good solution. But if you had made an investment in your own separate router or mesh wireless system, then obviously you're still going to want to use that because you spent a few $100s or more on it. And so what I wanted to go through here was just how to access this page and what some of the changes that I made to this gateway was so that I could use my own equipment. So as I had said, the router gateway page is accessible when you either type in 192.168.1.1 from your browser, or you can actually go to router.optimum.net. Either way will take you to this. You have to log in using your Optimum username and password, and then this is the dashboard that you're shown. Now, as you can see here, it's got a bunch of information. It's got the gateway, it's got the MAC address, the IP address, the Wi-Fi network name, password, if you wanted to work at that. And if you hit more, this is kind of where I get frustrated with Altice One, and that's the fact that you actually don't have the ability to turn this off. You have to keep it on. You can either change the network name or the password or the security type, but even if you go to advanced settings, you can't turn off the antennas. All you can do is choose different channels or have it choose the channels automatically. That's frustrating because obviously if you're in a home environment, when you have your own personal Wi-Fi equipment as well as the Altice One Wi-Fi signal, it's going to create some congestion in the air, and the performance won't be as good as it could be if it was just one signal coming out. It's frustrating that Altice or Optimum wouldn't understand this and give us the ability to turn it off. But living with that limitation, you still can do some pretty interesting things. If you're like me, you have had all of your equipment using the 192.168.1.1 address range. And so if you have equipment that is still using that range, my suggestion is to do what I did here, and that's just change the IP address of the LAN setup for the Altice One. In this case, I changed it to 192.168.2.1, and what I did in the IP address distribution is I restricted the number of DHCP addresses that the Altice One could give out. That way, this prevents any devices from inadvertently connecting to the Altice One. You know, it's funny. One thing that the Altice One does that really surprised me, you can actually set a DMZ host, and you just go to advanced settings and then go to port management, and then you have the ability inside this menu to specify a DMZ host. So after it loads, you can see that you have the ability to specify a DMZ host. In this case, this is the IP address of my Pfsense firewall. So after that configuration, that's pretty much all that we have to do with the Altice One box. The next step would be to go and take our repurposed computer and make that a Pfsense firewall. But again, if all you were doing was looking to use your own router or wireless mesh system, you're pretty much done at this point. But I would strongly recommend you stay tuned and watch the rest of this video where we kind of go over the install and setup of the Pfsense firewall so that you could have even greater control and management of your wireless environment. So stick tight and I'll pick you guys up at the next phase of the install. Okay, so now that we've made the configuration changes to the Altice One box, we're going to go ahead and install Pfsense on a repurposed computer. As I had shown earlier, in my case, I'm using a server, but you don't really need to have such a beefy piece of equipment. In fact, on the Pfsense website, it says that all you need really is a computer with a 600 megahertz or faster processor, at least 512 megs of RAM, at least 4 gigs of storage space, and at least one network port. I would recommend that you have at least 2, and the reason for that is so that you could have one port dedicated for your LAN interface and one for the WAN interface. And just as a recap, we're going to connect the WAN interface of the Pfsense box to the port 4 of the Altice One box. That's how we're going to get the WAN connection. So what you're going to do is you would just go to pfsense.org, hit download, and then it says here it's the latest stable version, which is the community edition. We're going to select the image to download. And the architecture is going to be the 64-bit architecture. We're going to install to a USB memory stick and just hit VGA because 99% of the time you're going to be doing this installing with a keyboard and monitor. So just select that and then hit download. It downloads the image file. You have to download that and then extract it using 7-zip or another decompressing software, and then take that ISO file and burn it to a memory stick using Rufus or another tool like that. Once you do that, you're good to go. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to our server and we're going to install Pfsense. So now we're going to go ahead and install Pfsense after downloading it and getting the file ready. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install it on a virtual machine because I have Pfsense running in my regular server right now. I don't want to go ahead and reinstall it on that. So for the purposes of showing how the install process goes, I'm going to just do it on a VM that I have on my Proxmox environment. I have the VM already set up, so I'm just going to hit start, and then you'll connect to the console. You'll see that it starts to go through the process. The process is pretty straightforward. It's just going to do things pretty automatically, and after about a minute or so, it's going to get us to the selection of our Ethernet ports. So just going to wait a few seconds, and then we'll be able to start doing some work. Okay, so that was pretty fast. And you see that this is the first selection screen that we're at. It identified 2 ports, VTNet 0 and VTNet 1. The reason why it says VTNet is because it's using the VirtIO networking adapter. Just want to throw an FYI out there. On your computer, if you're not doing a virtual install, you're not going to see VTNet. You might see GB0, GB1, or EN0, EN1. Just want to make sure that if you don't see VTNet, not to worry, it's still going to work. You just have to make sure you know which ports you're using as your LAN port and as your WAN port. So one of the first questions it asks is, should VLANs be set up now? You can go ahead and say no for now. It asks you to then select the WAN interface. We're going to do VTNet 0. And then it will ask for the LAN interface, which is VTNet 1. And it will ask you to then confirm. And then do you want to proceed? Yes. And then it's going to go ahead and do some more background processes and configurations. And pretty soon we'll be at the main menu. Just want to throw it out there. One other aspect is, depending on how beefy your computer is, will determine how quickly or unquickly this moves. And so just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. In this case, it was pretty fast. It's showing the WAN interface. Now, I just wanted to point this out there. Because I'm using this on a virtual machine, which is behind my production Pfsense firewall, that's why it's showing that we have a WAN address of 192.168.1. When you do this on your regular computer and that computer is plugged into port 4 of the Altice One box, and you change the default IP address scheme of the Altice One, you're going to see an address that is of that subnet. So just want to make sure that you're aware of that. In this case, because I'm connecting to the Pfsense box, that's why it's showing that 168.1, not a 168.2. But the LAN address you see is set as 192.168.1.1, and so that's all correct here. At this point, we are pretty much done with the command line interface. What we're going to do now is we're going to stop and go to the web interface where we can do the additional configuration and finish this up. All right, so now we are at the web configuration page for Pfsense, and we're going to log in. The default username and password is admin, and the password is Pfsense. When you first sign in, it asks you to change the password. I've already done that, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign in. Once we're in, this is the admin board or dashboard that you would see. On this dashboard, you'll see pretty much all the pertinent information of your Pfsense firewall, as well as
the status of the interfaces that you have. In my case, I've got 3 interfaces: my WAN, my LAN, and a third one that I'm using for a specific wireless access. And so far, it looks like everything is all up and running. It will show your memory usage to kind of drill home the point that you don't need a very beefy machine. I have 16 gigs of memory on this server, and I'm only using 3%. I have 450 or 447 gigs of storage, and I'm only using 3%. So you don't really have to. Actually, I'm using 0% according to this. You don't need to have a tremendously powerful system, but it is a very powerful firewall. It's extremely customizable. You can make changes by interfaces. You can set different rules on the firewall. One thing I like is the traffic shaper, where you can set limiters for certain traffic. You have different services like DHCP and dynamic DNS. One thing I did want to kind of show is the DHCP server. And again, you can do it per interface that you have, and I think that's pretty cool. In this case, you have the 192.168.1 subnet, and you can specify the address range. In my case, I've done it from 1.10 to 1.220. The servers that I have, including the Proxmox environment, are all in IP addresses that are greater than 220, so I wanted to reserve the rest of the space, IP address space, for all my server equipment. You can specify your Win servers if you use them. You can also specify your DNS servers. I always use my router as the primary DNS server, and in this case, I'm using Cloudflare's Quad 1 as my secondary DNS server. I'm a big fan of Cloudflare and their Quad 9, and since I started using Quad 1, I've been pretty happy with it. Other options, you can add gateways or domain names if you need to. One thing I did want to say is if you have, say, an uninterruptible power supply, or in my case, my Aruba controller and my Aruba access points, the access points when booting, they use DHCP option 43 to find the controller. And so this actually gives you the ability to add in DHCP options. So you just would go to advanced for additional bootp/DHCP options, click this button, and then enter the option number, and it's select IP address or host, and then enter the IP address, and then hit save, and then you're asked to apply it, and that's it. Ultimately, this is a very powerful tool, and what I can say is that this tutorial only goes into how to set it up. If you want to find out more and start using it really in depth, I highly recommend going to the Pfsense website and getting to the install manual as well as the product manual, and it will give you a tremendous amount more information than I could in this tutorial video series. One thing I wanted to also show is that it's pretty fast. There's almost no additional latency that is created by using double net in using the Altice one as well as the Pfsense firewall. And as you see, I've got a 200 meg connection from Optimum, and I'm getting 227 megs download, and the standard Optimum upload of about 35. So I'm pretty happy with it. I love the fact that I have the ability to control my environment in a much more secure way than I was getting with the Altice One box. And I hope that this video tutorial series has been helpful for you. If I missed anything or if I'm wrong about something, please let me know. Otherwise, please leave some comments. And I really appreciate you taking the time to follow me through this entire journey. I hope it was helpful for you. I look forward to creating some more videos and helping some more people out. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and be blessed.